Hello, everyone, and welcome to another meeting to the new Geopolitics Research Network Discussion Club. Here we, as usual, have Mykhailo Samus, Volodymyr Solovian, and me, Igor Fedyk. Additionally, we are discussing the most important, from our point of view, topics of the geopolitical agenda that happened during last week. Let's traditionally start with the situation on the front line. So on the Luhansk direction, the enemy continues trying to encircle the Ukrainian troops in this region. The direct attacks which they are carrying out do not look entirely logical and require a colossal effort of forces and equipment. However, the enemy is guided not by the logic of a military operation, but by a political order to claim the capture of Severodonetsk. Today we see quite active actions from the southern direction, where the enemy is trying to reach the Bakhmut-Lysychansk road. If enemy succeeds in capturing Severodonetsk, he'll try to carry out a larger encirclement of our defenders in Lysychansk, advancing from Seversk and Popasna. In the Donetsk direction, the enemy is trying to tie up the actions of our troops and prevent the redeployment of reserves to other directions, including in the direction of Severodonetsk. In fact, most of the forces that are deployed in the Donetsk and Luhansk region are now solving the task of storming Severodonetsk or providing assault operations in the Severodonetsk area. In Kharkiv direction, the main forces of the enemy are concentrated in the direction of Izium-Slaviansk. In recent weeks, there were no serious enemy advances of more than 10 kilometers, but the enemy may try to make a breakthrough in several directions. The enemy is going to attack Slaviansk from two directions at once, from Izium and from Liman. Unlike the Izium direction, there are no noticeable advances from Liman yet. In the Liman area, the occupiers are trying to gain a foothold and are preparing the ground for building up forces and means. Also in Kharkiv direction, the enemy realized a serious threat to its entire Izium grouping, because if they were under attack or without support, they would not be able to carry out an offensive operation in the Slaviansk and Siversky direction. There they wanted to push Ukrainian troops away from the Izium direction, because the counteroffensive and advance of the armed forces of Ukraine threatened their communications from Volchansk to Izium. Thus, now the enemy is trying to push the Ukrainian forces into a zone from which it will at least be impossible to launch strikes on their communication. So far in the Zaporizhia region, the fighting is similar to those that are taking place in the southeastern part of the Donetsk region. That is, there the enemy massively uses artillery, multiply launch rocket systems, and sometimes aviation in order to prevent the advance of Ukrainian troops. In the Kherson direction, there are two separate operations, Kherson and Berislav. If Ukrainian troops manage to advance from WB to Berislav, they will actually cut the enemy grouping into conditional Kherson and Kryvyi Rih groupings. And in fact, the Kryvyi Rih group will be doomed. It will be cut off all the supply lines. Now, Ukrainian troops have managed to hold the bridgehead in the WB area and are grouping for possibly of advancing to Berislav area. At the same time, they don't allow the enemy to redeploy his units in order to eliminate this threat. And so Ukrainian troops will gradually be able to approach Kherson. But in order to storm Kherson, quite serious resources are required. So far, the Ukrainian troops have not accumulated them. As for the northern regions of the country, namely the Kyiv, the Chernihiv, and Sumy region, there has not been yet a powerful concentration. So in general, to assume the Ukrainian troops were able to stabilize the Luhansk direction by the end of the week. And despite the fact that recently Russians tried to attack in 9 directions only in Luhansk region, today the offensive has practically been stopped everywhere. There are fierce positional battles, but the front doesn't move. So this is the general situation on the front line. If you have something to add, so please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add definitely that I like the situation on the Black Sea, because Ukraine definitely started to build own A280 zone, like a zone that it's impossible to act Russian aviation and ships. It's something new historically, more than 100 years, that Russia now cannot be a dominant force in Black Sea fleet, especially in northern western part. And it's something new. I mean, that even strategically changing everything in this region. The strikes against Serpent Island and these oil towers, it means that we destroyed actually the gate which Russia tried to build to block Ukrainian navigation and actually international navigation from Ukrainian ports. And it means Ukraine sent a strong, very strong signal to Russians that no blockade possible if they like to stop Ukrainian attempts to deblock export of grain. Because if theoretically we imagine that Russians will try to stop Ukrainian attempts to organize this export and try to attack civilian ships, Ukrainian forces can easily destroy the ships by missiles. And of course, it will be not easy. Russians could try to use the civilian ships to avoid the strikes from missiles as possible, to use the naval tactics. But from another point of view, I think that Ukraine now even can threaten Russian fleet even in Sevastopol. So I think that now we are staying on the threshold of some strategic changes in Black Sea. And my prediction and my forecast for next steps, Russia will try to make even next steps to create a new tensions, but not in the Black Sea, but on the northern part of Europe. And few facts which relationship.
You mean in Lithuania?
Yes, what I'd like to say.
Blockade of the Kaliningrad region, right?
Yes, that Russia will try now to remove the accents by NATO and European Union from the Black Sea, which is impossible for Russia to be effective there, definitely. And I hope that next week will bring us more news on the Kherson directions. Now we'll keep silence on it, but I hope that it will be some pretty good news. And Russia will move the attention and focus of NATO and the US and NATO especially from Black Sea to Baltic Sea, but this especially the Suwalki Gap, famous Suwalki Gap, which is between Kaliningrad Oblast and Belarus territory. And if you remember all of these Zapad exercises, and especially the wargaming around these exercises, Vaishnoria, famous Vaishnoria, yeah, exactly what Russia is trying to do now, and what they're talking about, to create this corridor between Kaliningrad and Belarus and close communications, total communications, logistics between Poland and other NATO countries and Baltic states, which could be absolutely crazy test for NATO, because next step for NATO should be
engagement.
Activation of Article 5.
Yes, engagement. And, yeah. In the war that they wanted, they tried to avoid by all the means so far.
Yeah. So my short forecast, because of the stack of the offensive operations in Ukrainian battlefield, and the problem with the Black Sea, Russia will try to remove the attention of NATO and EU, of course NATO in the first voice, to northern part and Suwalki Gap, and trying to divide NATO because of this question. Because I'm not sure that, for example, Hungary, Germany, and France and Italy, Spain will support this.
Do you believe that Russians will move further than just blackmailing. They will use force.
You see, I think, of course,
this corridor.
I am sure that now.
I think it will be, like a suicide for Putin. Totally.
I'm not sure. Because, okay, now today they will conduct this, the meeting of the Council of Security, Russian Security. Patrushev will participate on this. I don't know if Putin personally, but they will show that they are ready to move very, very risky and very decisively. And in the same time, they will try to push on NATO. So
Putin already participated and made a statement about Samus and so on.
Absolutely. So they showing the full scale readiness of engagement here, Russia. So in this case, it's very interesting what NATO will answer, because if Lithuania itself alone will continue this very, very brave operation, I mean, very brave strategy toward Russia, it will be a very strong strike against NATO as an ally again, because they didn't show the strong and power during the first days of Ukrainian conflict and the full-scale operations against Ukraine by Russia. Now we have the same situation in Lithuania and Suwalki Gap, and actually Poland. Very interesting answer and reaction from Germany, for example. If they will give some deep concern, only will have that, okay, we're ready to fight. I'm not sure that Germans and Hungary guys, they will say, we're ready to fight for our Lithuanian and Polish brothers. This is a question which Russia will try to use.
Do you remember recently there was the statement by the high-ranking, I don't remember his position, high-ranking British military, who said that the British
chief of staff, I think, or commander or something like this.
Yeah, they have again be prepared to engage the war in Europe, for the warfare in Europe.
My understanding of this statement that actually Europe geographically it's Ural. So British forces needs to be ready to fight in Russian territory.
But I thought about this position of Lithuania. I would say it's risky enough, because it's a small country, despite it's the part of NATO, but it's risky enough.
But that is not their own position. It is in coordination with the European Commission, and they also, I think,
I
consultations with NATO, other NATO countries, so they don't act alone.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. That such Lithuanian move was not made by themselves, I would say. So it was made after. Let's say some kind of agreement between NATO states, or not all of them, between, for example, United States, Great Britain. So they'll do this step, and they will have support if Russia makes some or provocations, or even use force against Lithuania. So at least United States and Great Britain and maybe Poland and all, they will support Lithuania. Of course, France, Germany, and other old European countries, they will,
let's model, Igor, colleagues, let's model situation. Okay, Russia they will say we don't want to get any territories in Lithuania or Poland. We just make a corridor. So they could make something like operation on the road to secure or organize convoys
through Baltic Sea,
like military convoys, and support of the trains and the trucks on these ways. So what is the reaction?
Yeah, but it will be the military intervention.
Yes.
Without the permission of the Lithuanian authorities.
Yes.
No permission, so it's a military intervention. So they have
but the
Article 5 activated immediately.
But the situation is very interesting. Russians could act like in Crimea. They will say, we are very polite people. We just only securing our trains and tracks. We don't fight with Lithuanians, don't fight with, and they will go very calm and slow.
No.
And
you mean this corridor will be organized through the surface or via Baltic Sea?
No. Suwalki corridor. By the
obviously it's intervention.
It's intervention, and there have to be a reaction, at least from the Lithuanian forces. Lithuanian forces will stand on the border and say, no, we will not let you.
Okay, so Lithuanian forces needs to shoot first. I mean, because Russians will, we don't fight with you. We just go through your border control.
No, if they enter the territory of Lithuania, they have the right. The Lithuanians have the right to shoot.
They have a right, but they need to use it, and it's very interesting. What will be next? This is interesting. I think that
I think all these scenarios were discussed and considered before Lithuania took such a decision to block this Russian transit.
Okay, in this case, I would say that in 2017, on the background of Zapad 2017, I participated in Warsaw in some wargaming together with NATO colleagues, and it was very interesting. In that time, 2017, NATO didn't have any possible instruments to stop Russians because Russians had all of possible instruments to cut the Poland from Baltic states, cut all of communications. In this situation, the operation of all of this scenario to occupy Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia was kind of 1 week or so on something, or full stop. And of course, in that time, I think Russians didn't have this full equipped 18th division in Kaliningrad. Now Kaliningrad is pretty militarized zone. I hope that a lot of Marine Corps, for example, were killed in Ukraine already because from Kaliningrad. But nevertheless, I think compare these 4 battalions in Baltic states and all of these Russian forces, I think it will be very tough battles. But from another point of view, after Ukraine war now started, nobody will have any illusions. And of course, Estonians, Lithuanians, and Latvians will fight. Everybody will fight. Kaitselit, Zemesard, the Lithuania Rifle Union, all of these territorial defense layers, because they have a lot of layers, will fight very strongly. And of course, very strong position here should have Poland, which already have. Already they proclaimed even propositions to cover our sky in Western Oblast, I mean in Ukraine. So I think for Putin, it could be a question, why Putin trying to do this? Because I explained, it's very bad situation on the battlefield. It's better in Black Sea, total catastrophe. In Ukraine, I'm hope that Ukraine will continue this. So the only chance make a situation even worse for NATO and European Union. Try to engage them and try to ask.
It will be a very risky game for Putin.
Absolutely.
On one side, the possible result will be, I will not be afraid to say this, the dismantling of NATO. Because if, for example, Germany or France or Hungary will say, okay, we are deeply concerned and we will send more troops, let's sit at the table with Putin and discuss, and other countries at the same time, Lithuanians or Estonians will die from the Russian shelling. So it will be a totally disaster for NATO. So NATO will show that it...
right. And this is absolutely great for Putin.
At the same time, they will be creating some kind of a new alliance, including Poland, this Baltic states, then Ukraine on the southern front, Romanians, the United States, Great Britain, So that what Johnson is trying to set up right now. So it will be a start point for another security alliance.
Okay, Putin is idiot or maybe UK spy. You know, our discussion. So
yeah. we always return to
but look, I don't think that we have to underestimate the fact that there are already NATO countries, I mean international battalions, which where Germans, for example, are engaged, and they are already present in Lithuania. So if Russia invades, they interrupt some clashes with Germans.
Who say
they may be engaged?
Germans could sit in barracks and don't move. It's possible.
Yeah, because the general staff could say you don't have to engage in the fighting. So
this German look, this you know. Yeah, this Germany commands battalion task force belongs to Germany, and to participate in the war, in the conflicts, they need to have a permission from, I think that not from the Bundeswehr, but from Bundestag. And can you imagine how long could be a Bundestag decision-making process take? So
this is okay. This is we have these battalions right now on the terrain.
They are under command of NATO headquarters.
Okay, but without activation of Article 5, it's impossible to participate. Again, I'm not sure what is the order of battle for these battalions, but I'm sure they have a strict command. They shouldn't participate in any active battlefield with Russians without permission from Berlin and of course Brussels. It's impossible.
But what I wanted to say that Russians have more troops in general in Kaliningrad region and in Russia on the other side than, for example, these multinational battalions, NATO multinational battalions in Baltic states. So if something bad happens to these multinational battalions, okay, so the question is, if Germany will send additional troops there. So this is the question. And I think we know the answer.
I would say, I would say only Poland has capabilities to support Lithuanians, Estonians, and Latvians very, very fast. So they have fortunately, because of Russian war.
But at least Poland have enough capabilities to impose no flight zone, and how Russia will provide their operations without any control.
Okay, I'm not sure that Patriots in Poland they covering all.
Yeah, the range of Patriots they cannot.
Patriots is kind of 200 kilometers radars. Maybe radars could be of course longer, 1,000, even 1,000 kilometers with special capabilities, but missiles. 100 kilometers. By the way, as I know, in Poland, they don't have a Polish Patriots yet. They have only US Patriots. So US Patriots, so it means Mr. Biden should make a decision. This is very complicated situation, very complicated game again. Of course, very risky by Putin. I think that Lithuania and NATO should try to do their best in this situation. If not,
NATO has no choice.
Disaster.
To fight or be dismantled.
Absolutely. It will be a catastrophic situation for them.
Okay, so on this optimistic note, let's skip to another question. So another very important event occurred last week. One of two events. So the first was the visit of the European leaders. The leaders of the European Union to Kyiv. I mean, President Macron, Chancellor Scholz, Prime Minister Draghi, and President Iohannis. So, regarding this visit, I'd like to note some points. So, first, these four leaders agreed on their schedules and came to Ukraine is the clear sign of strong support of our country. The visit itself is a signal to us and to the Russians and ultimately to the Europeans of the importance of supporting Ukraine. Secondly, they expressed support for Ukraine's membership in the European Union. It must be understood that France, Italy, and Germany are the largest economies of the European Union and the countries with the greatest influence inside it. So, in fact, that such a statement means that the issue has been resolved, although the decision is made by consensus and each country can still block it. But Macron and Scholz would not risk such statements if they were unsettled. Third is that all the leaders were in European and Bucha and saw themselves what wooden troops has left behind. Their photos from European will be a public reminder for each of them in case of continued detention of military aid or attempts to the backroom deals with the Kremlin. And fourth, there was no hint that they have tried to persuade the Ukrainian state leadership to negotiate with Putin. And after visiting European, it was clearly not logical. Plus, the position of Ukrainian president is very clear, and they know it. So, in general, I can say that this visit can be considered as successful. So, what are your impressions?
I think it depends on. And we may count on whether these visits were successful enough only after we will achieve enough weaponry from France and Germany, because only that will highlight the real desire of Paris and Berlin to bring Ukraine to the victory, or at least to make our positions in negotiations with Russia more fruitful. So providing Ukraine with candidacy, European Union candidacy, is a very symbolic gesture, and that may be quite an aspirational for Ukrainian society. And it is a help for Ukrainian authorities to exchange an idea of NATO integration with European Union integration. But from my purpose, we should understand that Ukraine will not become an EU member state until we will not control all our territories.
Why do you think so, Volodya? You told about controlling of all of territories.
Yes,
Crimea,
including Crimea, of course.
But what about the, for example, Cyprus?
Of course, but Cyprus is in conflict with Turkey, and Turkey is a NATO member state. Maybe someday Russia also will become a NATO member state, and then we will be allowed
I think
to become
Cyprus is the part of the European Union, so it's
yes, but this conflict is under control. And there are EU peacekeepers. Let's impose.
Erdogan will try to reach you now. If you told him, Erdogan is not on the control of the European Union.
But look, there are United Nations peacekeepers in Cyprus, but I don't see any possibility of such a peace-building mission in Donbass after this large-scale war erupted.
Yeah, I mean that actually European Union, basically it's more about economy and human rights. If Ukraine will be generally the answer of the criteria, why we should wait? Why before?
It's also about security, and if Ukraine will become an European
Union, do you think that European Union it's about security? Do you have some facts about it? So, just a couple of the facts that European Union is about security. No, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I mean that for Ukraine, it's absolutely great situation with this candidacy, and I think we're happy to live in this time, because if somebody told me half a year ago that it's possible, I would say no.
Yes, but let's don't forget that it is just a candidacy. It will help us.
It's not just.
Yes, it's program for further reforming.
I'd like to remind you that, for example, Bosnia and Herzegovina, a lot of years staying before this. It's possible. candidate status. Possible. They are not candidate. And now it's in the Balkans, a lot of discussions how it's possible that they staying on the potential candidate in Ukraine skipped several stages staying before us. And especially even in Serbia, they told that Ukraine could be a faster candidate. Of course, we could be, because if we answer in all of criteria, why we should stay here. And when we're talking about that, it doesn't matter because Ukraine in a conflict of Russia, I think it's not true. It's absolutely not true, because I think that the main thing for Ukraine now is conduct reforms. If we're talking about European Union, like Istanbul Convention.
Yeah, let's say Istanbul Convention. Look,
Yes.
just we haven't agreed on it for years, but
Since 2011, can you imagine?
yeah,
Like more than 10 years. You know,
here in one day, like adopted. Okay. No, it's not just a candidacy, because first, what is very important are the reforms which will improve the not only the level, but improve the state itself, all the state institutions,
and support society to improve state. That state cannot press on society, do not make reforms. It's absolutely important. Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is will be if we conduct these reforms, and okay, if our membership in the European Union will be delayed for some period, okay, but if we conduct reform, it will be a positive result. Yeah, and what I want to say, another thing about the candidacy, Ukraine then will have the access to the European funds. As the European Union candidate, you have access to European funds, and it will help to conduct the reforms and to modernize the country.
Until we will have no sustained peace with Russia, yes, we may provide institutional reforms, and it's vital for us.
Yeah, that's what we
I agree,
about.
But we will not have enough funds to reestablish our economy, not just rebuild buildings, but to create workplaces.
I'm not agree. You know, now, absolutely now we're building new economy. Look at the infrastructure. Now we're building new infrastructure in Poland. We didn't have it for free for 30 years, and before we didn't have it for 100 years, because if you've been on the border with Poland, we had, I think, one railway, or maybe a couple of them, and a lot of just didn't work railway lines. Now we're building new railway lines. We could build a new, okay, Russians could hit it by missiles. So what? We should do it, because Ukrainian economy, because of this Russian full-scale attack, now totally reopening toward Europe, even with our grain export. I think it's very nice changes, even it's not very profitable, and we need investments, but we changes toward the European Union, and Baltic states, Germany will use own ports to export our grain. I think it's absolutely great new connections. Before it's impossible absolutely impossible to imagine. And I am sure that after Ukraine will deblock Ukrainian ports, we still have these great connections with Europe. Instead, very interesting, instead of Belarus, because Belarus has very strong connection with Poland, because Lukashenko he built a lot of infrastructure here, especially in Chinese project of one way, one belt. They put Belarus here and connected to Poland and actually Lithuania. Now Ukraine will be work instead of Belarus. I think it's absolutely great process to connect, by the way, Black Sea ports with by railways to western border. It's absolutely great. Absolutely. It's only infrastructure. I'm not talking about economy. To be honest, we didn't have any economy before. It was corrupted post-Soviet something, not economy. It's my very personal but critical understanding what we had in Ukraine.
Okay, and on this, another positive point, let's keep to another question because we are running out of time and we have to discuss another very important event that happened this last week. It's the Ramstein 3 meeting, which happened on June 15 and was held in Brussels, NATO headquarters, which was attended by the defense ministers of 50 countries, and Moldova, Georgia, and even Ecuador joined the participating countries. So some conclusions from my side from this meeting. So the first is that the format is gaining a momentum, and there are more and more allies in the anti-Putin coalition. Secondly, it is being conducted regularly every month. Thirdly, this third meeting has proven to be a very practical system that helps allies work better together to enable Ukraine to meet the new challenges and resist the changing war. And the main thing is that Ukraine was promised another range of weapons. So among them, this another units of 155 howitzers and the shells for them, the tactical towed vehicles for transporting the howitzer, the HIMARS systems, additional the Coast Guard system with Harpoon missiles, additional anti-ship missiles by the United Kingdom. I think it will be Brimstone. Germany has promised to provide us with 3 Mars 2 MLRS system in August, September. Slovakia with Mi-17 helicopters and missile ammunition. And also Canada, Poland, and Netherlands has promised us the more artillery. So now we can only hope that there will be that we will not have to wait for about above mentioned weapons for months. So this is especially true for Germany's promises. So what you are opinion expression from this Ramstein 3 meeting and from this German assistance of 3 MLRS? It's like Ramstein 3 and Germany promised us to send 3 MLRS systems. On Ramstein 4, there will be another 4 additional MLRS from Germany.
In general, it's quite positive. Our main needs are fulfilled in terms of artillery systems of 155 millimeters, and one of the consequences are quite successful targeting of military and munition depots of Russian forces in Donbass, and that is a crucial change since several weeks ago, when there was a lack of munition, and it was quite a grave situation for Ukrainian forces. So, of course, this help is not enough, but still we have count of more complicated weaponry systems. And as for Germany, I hope not for their tanks or maybe some offensive weaponry, but there is a real possibility to achieve air defense systems, which will be capable to save pace over main Ukrainian cities and facilities. So we understand that missile attacks will occur until the end of the war. So even if Germany will provide us with complicated air defense systems, it will be a great achievement and real support from them.
I mean the IRIS-T, right, system?
IRIS-T SL, because
IRIS-T
it's an air-to-air missile. Yeah, from my point of view, the main success of Ramstein is that Ramstein is continuing, and more countries, especially Moldova and Georgia, is very symbolic, especially on the eve of candidates EU decision. they decided, okay, we are ready to help Ukraine. Okay, we understand it. And another thing that it was some signals from Ukrainian leadership from different sources, I don't know, and publicly, that it's not land lease yet. So what we're talking about, it's only short term decisions, which is not this huge $40 billion support that is, I think, really we could expect on autumn. So it means that
In autumn. But
yeah, of course.
For that, we expected recently, we expected in mid of summer, July, maybe August, but we expected in July.
July is very soon. I think that
in autumn. So
in reality, it's impossible to say that we will have hundreds of MLRS in July. We will have maybe dozen. I think it will be very good and useful on some directions. Of course, not. It's impossible to change the situation totally. But for example, on the south, I think it will be absolutely great support for our forces if we could have a fire on the deep positions of Russians, especially Kherson area or Melitopol, even Melitopol area. It will be absolutely great. I'm not talking about Donbas, because in Donbas we really need kind of hundreds of these systems to change totally situation and to stop the initiative of Russians to break through the Ukrainian defense totally. So I think that basically this Ramstein, continue the trends of that more and more countries support Ukraine, and I think that it's absolutely positive. The negative is that it's too slow in compare what we have on the battlefield, and this is really problems for me. For example, it's I cannot explain for myself why we don't have a massive support from the air defense and missile defense yet, because in January this year, yeah, okay, somebody could say that it's a problem, in February, again, in March, okay, somebody has some, dreams that war could stop just now because Russians just escaped from Kyiv and from other areas. Now it's understandable that Russia will use all of the missiles, which is thousands, very old one, very unprecise. So we need a lot of missile defense, a lot of. Especially in some big cities, especially in some areas of active battlefield. So I cannot.
Maybe they will come with land lease.
Yeah, but
systems. But yeah,
it's possible to
too late.
Let's use only lease, not land and lease. Just lease some systems, and it's possible. I think it's. Even Germany, they have a Patriots. Of course, they
look. Let's remember when the Soviet Union achieved his first tanks via land lease.
Okay.
How many months it took for United States to provide Soviet Union Valentines and other techniques? So it was
even years, I think.
No. It was a battle of Moscow when tanks from United States participated in securing Moscow. So it took just at least half of a year to provide Soviet Union with the first weaponry.
So absolutely the same timeline. We will get our first land lease in autumn, maybe not in November, like Russia in Soviets, but maybe in September. I hope.
So with these hopes for land lease and our candidacy for the European Union, I propose to stop here. Hope to see you next week.